In the early 1990s, in a quiet town where everyone knew each other, there was a man who seemed completely normal. He had a job. He had friends. He smiled when people talked to him, and he lived in a small rented house that looked like every other house on the street. Nothing about him screamed danger, but inside that house, something was happening, something that would later shock an entire country, because this man wasn't just hiding a secret, he was hiding buddies. And the worst part, he wasn't hiding them far away. He wasn't burying them in the woods. He wasn't dumping them in rivers. He kept them inside his own home and lived with them. His name was Dennis Nilsen. People around him described him as quiet, polite, and strange. In a harmless way. He didn't have a girlfriend. He didn't talk much about his personal life, and he didn't have many visitors. But nobody thought anything of it, because some people are just loners. Some people just like being alone. That's what they thought. Until one day, the drains in his house started clogging. Dennis had a habit. He would meet young men at bars. Sometimes homeless boys. Sometimes drunk strangers. Sometimes someone who just needed a place to sleep. He would bring them home. He would offer them food, a drink, a bed, and the next morning, they wouldn't leave because they wouldn't wake up. At first, Dennis told himself he wasn't a monster. He told himself he was lonely. He told himself he just wanted someone to stay. But loneliness doesn't make someone kill. Loneliness doesn't make someone do what Dennis did next. After he murdered them, he didn't get rid of them immediately. Instead, he would wash them, dress them, and place them in his apartment like they were still alive. Sometimes, he would sit in the same room with them for hours, watching TV, eating, talking, as if the dead body beside him was still his friend. And when the smell became too strong, he didn't panic. He didn't call the police. He didn't even try to run. He simply did something even more horrifying. He started cutting them apart. The reason this case became so infamous is not just because of the murders, but because of how calm Dennis was, how routine it became. Like he was doing chores, like he was cleaning his house, like he was preparing dinner. He didn't act like someone hiding a crime. He acted like someone living his normal life. And he did this again, and again, and again. One of the most disturbing parts is how long he kept some bodies inside his home. Days, weeks, sometimes longer. And during that time, he would sleep in the same room, sometimes right beside them. The neighbors didn't suspect anything. Not at first, but eventually, people started noticing something. A strange smell, a sickly, rotten odor that would drift through the hallways. At first, people assumed it was garbage, or maybe a dead rat in the walls. But the smell got worse, and worse, until it became impossible to ignore. One day, Dennis called a plumber. Because his drains were clogged again, the plumber arrived, checked the pipes, and immediately knew something was wrong. Because what came out of the drain wasn't normal. It wasn't hair. It wasn't grease. It wasn't dirt. It was flesh. Human flesh. The plumber froze, his hands shaking, his stomach turning, and he left the house as fast as he could. He didn't even finish the job. He went straight to the police. When police arrived, Dennis didn't resist. He didn't scream. He didn't run. He simply opened the door and calmly said, "I think you better come inside." The officers entered, and what they found was something straight out of a nightmare. In his home, they found bags, buckets, pieces, body parts, remains. And when they searched deeper, they found evidence of multiple victims. Not one, not two, but many. Dennis sat quietly during the investigation, like a man waiting at a bus stop. And when the officers asked him why, he answered in a calm voice, "I was lonely. I didn't want them to leave." That sentence made the entire room go silent, because the way he said it wasn't emotional, it wasn't angry, it wasn't guilty. It was like he was explaining a small mistake, like he had forgotten to pay a bill. The police asked him how many. Dennis thought for a moment, and then said, 15. 15 human beings. 15 lives ended, and most of them were never reported missing because they were poor, homeless, or had no one searching for them. That's the part that hits the hardest. Some of these victims vanished, and the world didn't even notice. When the trial happened, the courtroom was packed. People wanted to see the face of a man who could do something so sick. But Dennis didn't look evil. He didn't look like a monster. He looked like an ordinary man. And that's what terrified people the most. Because it meant a monster doesn't always look like a monster. Sometimes he looks like your neighbor. Sometimes he looks like someone you'd never suspect. After Dennis was arrested, investigators tried to identify every victim. But many remains were destroyed. Some were flushed. Some were burned. Some were cut so small that they couldn't even be recognized. And as the police searched, they realized something even darker. Dennis had moved houses before, which meant he had been doing this for years. Not days, not weeks, years. He was eventually sentenced, and he spent the rest of his life in prison. But even in prison, he never truly acted sorry. He never cried for the victims. He never begged for forgiveness. He simply spoke about it like it was a story. Like it happened to someone else. And that's why this case still haunts people. Because it wasn't a crime of rage. It wasn't a crime of passion. It was something colder, something emptier, something worse. Imagine walking into a house, a normal house, on a normal street. And inside, a man is sitting on his couch, watching television with the remains of his victims only a few feet away. And nobody knew. Not the neighbors. Not the friends. Not the people at the bar. Not even the victims. Until it was too late. So next time you walk past a quiet house, and you see a man living alone, remember this. Some horrors don't live in haunted mansions. They don't live in forests. They don't live in abandoned hospitals. Sometimes, the worst horror lives in the most normal place, and it smiles at you like everything is fine. And